22 years after losing his first child, billionaire Elon Musk walks into a small San Jose cafe for a routine coffee stop. Behind the counter stands an elderly woman with worn hands and tired eyes, yet her smile remains kind despite her obvious exhaustion. When their eyes meet, recognition dawns. It's Maria Fuentes, the nanny who cared for his infant son, Nevada, before his tragic death. After a brief conversation, Elon discovers that Maria is now 68, working 2 jobs to survive, drowning in medical debt after her husband's cancer battle, and struggling with arthritis that makes each workday painful. But instead of offering a simple check or public donation, Elon begins to formulate a plan unlike anything he's done before. What unfolds next will transform not only Maria's life, but an entire community, all without her ever knowing the true source of the mysterious changes that begin appearing in her world. As Maria hands Elon his coffee, neither realizes this chance. Encounter is about to set in motion an extraordinary chain of events that will create ripples felt across continents and potentially even to Mars itself. Maria Fuentes wiped her hands on her apron and adjusted her name tag. Her fingers were stiff from arthritis after 4 hours of serving customers at the Sunrise Cafe in San Jose. 5 more hours to go before she could rest her aching feet. "1 large black coffee, please," a man said, his face hidden behind a baseball cap and sunglasses. "Coming right up, sir," Maria replied with a smile that never showed her tiredness. She turned to pour the coffee, feeling the familiar twinge in her lower back. At 68 years old, standing all day wasn't getting any easier. But bills didn't pay themselves, and the medical debt collectors called every Tuesday like clockwork. As she handed the man his coffee, their fingers brushed, and she looked up. Something about his eyes seemed familiar, thoughtful and intense. The man tilted his head, studying her face. "Maria?" he asked, his voice suddenly uncertain. "Maria Fuentes." She squinted, trying to place him. Then recognition hit her like a lightning bolt. Despite the casual clothes and cap, she knew those eyes. They had once been filled with grief that no parent should ever know. "Mr. Musk?" she gasped. "Elon Musk?" The tall man nodded, a smile warming his face. "I can't believe it's you. It's been, what, 20 years?" 22 years this May, Maria said softly. The memories flooded back. A younger Elon, his first wife Justine, and their beautiful baby boy Nevada. Maria had been their nanny in Palo Alto back when Elon was still building his first company. She remembered rocking Nevada to sleep, singing Spanish lullabies while Elon worked late into the night. Then came the unthinkable tragedy when Nevada died from SIDS at just 10 weeks old. Maria had stayed with them through those dark weeks afterward, cooking meals that went uneaten and tidying rooms that no one cared about. Eventually, she moved on to other families as the Musks tried to rebuild their lives. "How are you?" Elon asked, seeming genuinely interested, despite being one of the richest men in the world. Before Maria could answer, the manager called from the kitchen. "Maria, Table 4 needs service." "I have to work," she apologized. "My shift ends at 3. Elon checked his watch. "I'll come back. I'd like to catch up if that's okay." Maria nodded, surprised. Why would a billionaire want to catch up with an old nanny? The rest of her shift crawled by. Maria served eggs and pancakes, refilled coffee cups, and collected tips that would help buy groceries this week. All while wondering if Elon Musk would really return. At 3 o'clock, she hung up her apron, counted her tips, 42.75, and headed for the door. Outside in the parking lot stood Elon, leaning against a sleek silver car. "I thought you might want to sit somewhere quiet," he said, gesturing to a small park across the street. They found a bench under a shady tree. For a moment, neither spoke, the years stretching between them like a vast canyon. "You look well," Maria said finally, though it wasn't entirely true. Up close, she could see the stress lines on his face. Being famous came with its own burdens, and you haven't changed a bit, Elon replied kindly, though they both knew that wasn't true either. Maria's hair had gone from black to gray, and her once straight back now curved slightly forward. "So," he continued, "what has life brought you since we last saw each other?" Maria smoothed her uniform dress. "After I left your family, I worked for the Hendersons until their twins went to college. Then, the Patels for 8 years." She paused. "My husband Miguel got sick in 2015. Cancer." Elon's face softened with concern. "I'm sorry to hear that. He fought hard for 4 years. The treatments..." She shook her head. "Our savings, our retirement, our house, everything went to medical bills, and still it wasn't enough." "He passed away?" Elon asked gently. Maria nodded, blinking back sudden tears. 5 years ago. The hospital bills kept coming even after he was gone. The debt collectors bought the debt for pennies, but they want every dollar from me." "That's terrible," Elon said, real anger flashing in his eyes. "It's how the system works," Maria shrugged. "Now I work here during the day and clean offices at night. My Social Security check barely covers my medications." She hadn't meant to dump her problems on him. Something about those familiar eyes made the words tumble out before she could stop them. "What about family? Children?" Elon asked. "My daughter lives in Chicago with her husband. My son is in the army, stationed in Germany. They help when they can, but they have their own families to support." A comfortable silence fell between them. In the distance, children laughed on the playground. "I still volunteer at the children's shelter on weekends," Maria said, wanting to share something positive. "I read stories to the kids. Some remind me of the children I cared for over the years." "Including my sons?" Elon asked with a small smile. "I often think of Nevada," Maria admitted. "He would have been a fine young man by now." Elon's eyes clouded, briefly. "Yes, he would have." Maria suddenly felt self-conscious. "Listen to me rambling about my problems when you must be so busy. Are you in town for business?" "Actually, I was visiting a supplier nearby and stopped for coffee." Elon studied her face. "I'm glad I did. You were always so kind to us, especially during that time." Maria remembered how she'd held Justine for hours while she cried, how she'd made sure Elon ate something between his grief-stricken work binges. "It was nothing," she said simply. "You were good employers." "It wasn't nothing," Elon insisted. "Not to us." The park had grown busier, and Maria noticed people glancing their way, doing double takes as they recognized Elon. "I should go," she said, standing up slowly, her knees protesting. "I start my second job at 5. Elon stood too. "Can I drive you home at least?" "Oh no, the bus is fine. I've been taking it for years. Please, I insist." During the short drive to her apartment building, Maria felt acutely aware of the contrast between Elon's world and hers. His car probably cost more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. When they pulled up to her rundown building, Maria saw it through his eyes, the cracked concrete steps, the graffiti on the walls, the security bars on the windows. "Thank you for the ride," she said quickly, eager to end the awkward moment. "Maria," Elon said before she could exit the car, "may I have your phone number? I'd like to stay in touch." Surprised, Maria recited her number, which Elon entered into his phone. "It was really good to see you," he said sincerely. "You too, Mr. Musk." "Just Elon, please." Maria smiled and climbed out of the car. She watched him drive away, still processing the strange encounter. As she climbed the 3 flights to her tiny apartment, Maria wondered why fate had brought Elon Musk back into her life after all these years. Probably nothing would come of it. Important people made polite gestures all the time. She unlocked her door, thinking about the ironing she needed to finish before her night shift. The memory of a baby's laughter echoed in her mind. Nevada's laugh from so long ago. Maria had no way of knowing that this chance meeting would change everything. Or that even now, as his car disappeared around the corner, Elon Musk was already forming a plan that would transform not just her life, but an entire community. Elon couldn't stop thinking about Maria as he drove away from her apartment building. The image of her worn hands and tired eyes troubled him. How could someone who had given so much care to others end up struggling so badly in her later years? That evening, he called her. "Mr. Musk, Elon," Maria answered, surprised to hear from him so soon. "I know this is unexpected," Elon said, "but I'd like to hear more about your life since you worked for us. Would you have time for lunch tomorrow?" Maria hesitated. "I work until 3. "After 3 then. I'll pick you up at the cafe." The next day, Elon arrived in a less flashy car. This time, he took Maria to a quiet restaurant where they wouldn't be disturbed. "Tell me about the hard years," Elon said gently after they ordered. Maria sighed, her fingers twisting the paper napkin in her lap. "After your family, I worked for others in Palo Alto. Good families with busy parents. I loved those children, like my own." She told him how she and Miguel had scraped together enough for a small house in San Jose, how their children had gone to college, their daughter becoming a teacher, their son joining the military. "We were doing okay," Maria continued. "Miguel worked construction. I nannied. We had simple dreams: retire someday, play with grandchildren, maybe visit Mexico to see where our parents were born." Her eyes clouded. Then Miguel started getting tired, losing weight. The doctors found the cancer in his lungs, his liver, his bones. It was everywhere. Elon listened intently as Maria described the 4-year battle. The chemotherapy that made Miguel so sick he couldn't recognize her. The radiation that burned his skin. The experimental treatments that drained their savings but gave them hope. "The medical bills came every week," she said. "First thousands, then tens of thousands, finally hundreds of thousands. We sold the house, used all. Our retirement money. The kids sent what they could." Her voice grew softer. Miguel worried more about the debt than dying. "He kept apologizing for leaving me with nothing." "That's not right," Elon said, his jaw tight. "No one should have to choose between treatment and financial ruin." Maria shook her head. The worst part came after. The hospital sold the debt to a collection agency. They call all the time, send threatening letters. "My credit is destroyed." "How much do you still owe?" Elon asked carefully. "About $300,000, Maria replied, looking down at her barely touched food. "I'll never be able to pay it off, not at $12 an hour." She told him about her tiny 1-bedroom apartment with the leaky faucet and unreliable heat. How the building had recently been sold to developers who planned to convert it to luxury condos. Her rent had already increased twice. "The arthritis makes working hard," she admitted. "But I can't afford to stop. My Social Security is only $1,400 a month. My medications cost $380. Despite everything, Maria's spirit remained unbroken. She described her volunteer work at New Horizons Children's Shelter, where she read stories to abandoned and abused kids every Saturday. "Those children have nobody," she said, her face brightening. "When I read to them, they forget their troubles for a little while. One little boy, Mateo, reminds me of your Xavier. So curious about everything." "You remember my sons?" Elon asked, surprised. "Of course. I still have the Christmas card you sent the year after I left, with the twins as toddlers. Such handsome boys." Elon was moved by her genuine interest in his family despite her own hardships. "What about your grandchildren?" he asked. Maria beamed, pulling out her phone to show pictures of 5 children ranging from 3 to 15 years old. "My youngest grandson, Luis, has cerebral palsy. Such a bright child, but the therapies are expensive. My daughter and son-in-law work extra jobs to pay for them." As they finished lunch, Elon asked about her dreams. If money were no object, what would she want? Maria thought for a moment. "I'd pay off the debt, of course. Find a safe place to live where I wouldn't worry about eviction. But mostly, I'd want to help children again, not just on weekends. The shelter needs so much: books, computers, trained staff." After dropping Maria at her apartment, Elon sat in his car for a long time. This woman who had cradled his firstborn son, who had shown such kindness during the worst days of his life, was now working herself to exhaustion just to survive. To contrast with his own fortune, built in part during those years when Maria had made his family life possible, couldn't be more stark. While he'd been launching rockets and building electric cars, Maria had lost everything caring for her dying husband. Elon pulled out his phone and made a call. "Jared," he said to his personal attorney, "I need you to look into something discreetly. It's about a medical debt situation." He paused. "And find out everything you can about the New Horizons Children's Shelter in San Jose." He ended the call, his mind already racing with possibilities. What Maria needed wasn't charity, it was justice and opportunity. And Elon had the resources to provide both without drawing attention to himself or embarrassing the proud woman who had given so much to others. As he drove away, Elon made himself a promise. Maria Fuentes wouldn't spend her final years struggling against a broken system. Not if he could help it. And he could. That night, Elon couldn't sleep. He lay awake in his hotel room, staring at the ceiling as his mind raced. The encounter with Maria had stirred up memories he rarely allowed himself to revisit. He remembered those early days after Nevada's death, the crushing grief, the feeling that the world had ended. Maria had been there, a quiet, steady presence. She'd made sure he ate when he forgot to. She'd handled the calls he couldn't take. She'd maintained a sense of normalcy when everything felt broken. Elon grabbed his tablet and began researching. First, he looked into medical debt collection practices in California. What he found angered him. Predatory companies buying debt for pennies on the dollar, then hounding vulnerable people like Maria for full payment. The company holding Maria's debt, Platinum Financial Recovery, had hundreds of complaints filed against them for aggressive tactics. Next, he searched for information about Maria's apartment building. Sure enough, Skyline Development had purchased the 60-unit complex 6 months ago and had already filed permits to convert it to upscale condominiums starting at $800,000 each. Current residents would have only 90 days to relocate once renovations began. His research continued until dawn. New Horizons Children's Shelter operated on a shoestring budget, relying heavily on volunteers like Maria. Their facility needed repairs, their programs were underfunded, and they had a waiting list of children needing services. By morning, Elon had the beginnings of a plan. He sent messages to his executive assistant, canceling his meetings for the next 2 days. Then he made a series of calls. "This is highly unusual, Mr. Musk," said James Wong, his financial advisor, when Elon explained what he wanted to do. "I understand your desire to help this woman, but perhaps a simple donation would be more straightforward." "A donation would draw attention," Elon replied, "and it wouldn't solve the underlying problems. I want sustainable solutions, not temporary fixes." "As you wish," Wong sighed. "I'll set up the shell company and transfer the funds. No connection to you will be visible." Elon's next call was to Elena Valdez, a social worker specializing in senior care in San Jose. "I need someone who can coordinate services discreetly," Elon explained after describing Maria's situation without revealing his connection. "The recipient shouldn't know where the help is coming from." "That's an unusual request," Elena said cautiously. "I understand your concern," Elon replied. "But this person is proud. Direct charity would hurt her dignity. I want to create opportunities, not handouts." Elena considered this. "I've seen well-meaning help backfire when it undermines someone's sense of self-worth. I'll help, but only if everything we do maintains this woman's autonomy and dignity." "That's exactly what I want," Elon agreed. Throughout the day, Elon built his team, lawyers, financial advisors, social workers, community development experts. Each was given only the information they needed for their part of the plan. None knew the full scope of what Elon intended, and all signed strict confidentiality agreements. Only Jared Cohen, his personal attorney for over 15 years, knew everything. "Let me get this straight," Jared said during their late lunch. "You want to secretly solve this woman's problems, revitalize an entire neighborhood, and ensure no one traces it back to you?" "Precisely," Elon confirmed. "May I ask why? You donate to charities all the time. Why the secrecy?" Elon stared into his coffee. "Do you remember when Nevada died?" Jared's expression softened. "Of course. It was devastating. Maria was our nanny. Then, Elon paused, gathering his thoughts. "When you're in that kind of pain, most people don't know what to do. They say the wrong things or avoid you entirely. Maria she knew exactly what we needed. She never tried to minimize our grief or rush us through it." He continued, "One night, about 2 weeks after, I couldn't sleep. I went to the kitchen at 3 a.m. and found Maria there, cleaning baby bottles we no longer needed. She was crying softly while she worked. When she saw me, she didn't try to hide her tears or apologize. She just said, 'He was so beautiful. Your son.' It was the first time I felt like someone else truly understood what we'd lost." Jared nodded silently. "If I helped her publicly, it would become a media circus," Elon explained. "Some feel-good story about a billionaire's generosity that would cheapen what Maria did for us. This isn't about publicity or tax write-offs, it's personal." That evening, Elon reviewed the detailed plans his team had developed. They addressed not just Maria's immediate needs, but created a foundation for long-term security and fulfillment. Purchase: Maria's medical debt through a non-profit organization that forgives healthcare debt for caregivers. Acquire the apartment: building through a community land trust that would maintain affordable housing. Create a position at New Horizons Children's Shelter, specifically designed for Maria's skills and experience. Establish a healthcare fund to cover Maria's medical needs and those of other seniors in similar situations. Develop a comprehensive community center in Maria's neighborhood that would provide services ranging from childcare to job training to senior support. The final element came to Elon as he was reviewing the plans. The community center would be named after Miguel Fuentes, honoring Maria's husband and his sacrifice. This would give Maria the sense that Miguel's suffering had somehow led to something positive for others. The total cost would exceed $50 million. To Elon, it was worth every penny. He set up a holding company called XA Holdings, a private joke, referring to his son's name that no one but he would understand. All investments would flow through this entity, obscuring their source. Elon's phone buzzed with a message from Elena Valdez. Spoke with Maria's employers. Cafe owner is struggling financially, but values Maria highly. Office cleaning service has high turnover and poor working conditions. Both would be receptive to subsidies that benefited Maria without her knowledge. Perfect, Elon thought. Small changes could begin immediately, while the larger plans developed. He sent instructions to his team. Start slowly. No dramatic changes that would raise suspicion. Each improvement in Maria's life should seem plausible. A stroke of good luck, a timely opportunity, a fortunate coincidence. As midnight approached, Elon finally felt ready to sleep. The plan would take time to implement fully, but the first steps could begin tomorrow. Maria had spent decades caring for others at the expense of her own security. Now, someone would care for her, and she would never know it was the father of a baby boy she had loved and lost more than 20 years ago. Maria's alarm rang at 4:30 a.m. as usual. Her back ached as she sat up, her routine beginning with stretching, exercises the doctor had recommended for her arthritis. After a quick breakfast of toast and coffee, she caught the 5:15 bus to the cafe. 2 weeks had passed since her lunch with Elon Musk. She'd expected to hear from him again, but there had been no calls or messages. Rich people were like that, she thought, momentarily interested in ordinary lives before returning to their important business. She'd just finished setting up the cafe when her boss, Dave, called her into his small office. "Maria, I've got some news," he said, shuffling papers on his desk. "Remember that customer who left that huge tip last month? Turns out he's some tech investor." Maria nodded, wondering where this was going. "Well, he contacted me. Said he was impressed with our place and wants to help small businesses. He's offering healthcare subsidies for long-term employees." Dave smiled. "You're my only staff member who qualifies. You'll get full health insurance, effective immediately." Maria stood speechless. After 5 years working at the cafe, she'd never been offered benefits. "But how can you afford this?" she finally asked. "That's the thing. I'm not paying for it. This investor created some small business support program. We just got selected." Dave handed her an insurance card. "Here you go. It includes dental, too." That evening, after her night cleaning shift, Maria found the building manager waiting for her. Mr. Chen looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Fuentes, there's been a situation with your rent," he began. Maria's heart sank. Another increase would be impossible to manage. "There was an error in the computer system," Mr. Chen continued. "We've been overcharging you. The company is very sorry about this mistake." He handed her a letter explaining that her rent was being reduced by half and would be locked in at that rate for 3 years as compensation for the error. Additionally, she would receive a credit for past overcharges. "But I don't understand," Maria said, confused. "The rent has been going up for everyone since Skyline bought the building." Mr. Chen shrugged. "Corporate decisions. I just follow orders. Maybe they're worried about a lawsuit for discrimination against seniors. Whatever the reason, your rent is now $650 instead of $1,300. Maria sat on her bed that night, trying to make sense of her sudden good fortune. First health insurance, then rent reduction, It seemed too coincidental. Her daughter called during her evening routine. "Mama, how are you?" Carmen asked. "I'm fine, mija. Actually, some strange good things have been happening." Maria described, "The unexpected changes. That's amazing, Mama. Maybe your luck is finally changing." "Maybe," Maria said, still unsure. "How's little Luis doing with his therapy?" Carmen sighed. "It's hard. The insurance only covers 1 session per week, but he needs 3. We're trying to get approved for a special program, but the waiting list is long." After they hung up, Maria wished she could help more with her grandson's care. With her reduced rent, she could send Carmen a little extra each month, but it wouldn't be enough for the expensive therapy Luis needed. 3 days later, Maria received an official-looking letter. Her hands trembled as she opened it, fearing another medical bill collection notice. Instead, she found a statement from something called the Healthcare Debt Relief Foundation. "Dear Mrs. Fuentes, we are pleased to inform you that your medical debt of $297,486.32 has been purchased and forgiven by our organization. Your obligation to Platinum Financial Recovery is hereby satisfied in full. This debt forgiveness is not taxable income. Our foundation purchases medical debt for caregivers who have demonstrated exceptional service to others. Your name was submitted by a beneficiary of your care who wishes to remain anonymous." Maria sat down hard on her kitchen chair, the letter shaking in her hands. Her debt? Gone? The burden that had crushed her for 5 years had simply vanished? She read the letter 3 more times, looking for the catch. There had to be some mistake. Things like this didn't happen in real life. The following Saturday at the children's shelter, Maria was still distracted by the strange events of the week. As she arranged books for story time, the director, Sofia Rivera, approached her. "Maria, do you have a moment?" Sofia asked, leading her to a quiet corner. "Is something wrong?" Maria worried. Had they found someone younger to read to the children? "Quite the opposite," Sofia smiled. "We've received a grant to create a new position, storyteller in residence. It's a part-time job, 20 hours per week, with benefits. We'd like to offer it to you." Maria stared in disbelief. "Me? But I'm just a volunteer." "A volunteer who's been coming faithfully for 4 years, Sofia countered. "The children adore you, and your experience with multiple languages is perfect for our diverse kids." She handed Maria a folder. "The salary is $30 per hour." Maria did the math quickly. That was more than both her current jobs combined, for fewer hours and no physical strain. "This is too much," she whispered. "Too many good things don't happen all at once." That evening, Maria invited her friend Sofia, different from the shelter director, for coffee. They'd known each other for 30 years, since their children were small. "It's strange, Sofia," Maria confided. "In 1 week, I got health insurance, my rent was cut in half, my medical debt disappeared, and I was offered a dream job. It feels like..." "Like what?" Sofia prompted. "Like someone is arranging things?" Maria finished. "But who would do that? And why?" Sofia considered this. "Didn't you say you recently reconnected with Elon Musk, the billionaire?" Maria waved dismissively. "He was just being polite, remembering an old nanny. Why would someone like him bother with someone like me?" "Maybe you meant more to his family than you realize," Sofia suggested. "You cared for his son during a terrible time." "That was over 20 years ago," Maria said. "And besides, all these changes are coming through different organizations, not from him directly." Sofia raised an eyebrow. If I had billions of dollars and wanted to help someone without embarrassing them, that's exactly how I'd do it. Maria shook her head, unwilling to believe such a thing was possible. Yet as she lay in bed that night, she wondered, could Elon Musk really be behind her sudden change in fortune? It seemed impossible. But then again, so did everything else that had happened this week. 6 months passed, and Maria's life had transformed in ways she still couldn't quite believe. Her health had improved dramatically now that she could afford her medications and see specialists for her arthritis. The pain that had been her constant companion for years diminished to occasional twinges. Working at the children's shelter brought her joy every day. Instead of serving coffee to rushed customers or cleaning empty offices late at night, she spent her time reading stories, teaching Spanish, and developing literacy programs for children who reminded her of all the little ones she'd cared for throughout her life. With her reduced rent and higher salary, Maria had even managed to visit her sister in Arizona, her first vacation in over a decade. The trip had been rejuvenating, filled with laughter and reminiscing about their childhood in Mexico. On a warm Tuesday in October, Maria received an elegant envelope in her mailbox. Inside was an invitation printed on thick cream-colored paper. You are cordially invited to the opening celebration of the Fuentes Family Community Center, Saturday, October 15th at 11:20 a.m., 1450, Mariposa Street, San Jose, a new center dedicated to serving our community through education, healthcare, and opportunity for all generations. Your experience in childcare would be valuable as we develop our programs. Please join us for this special occasion. Maria read the invitation twice, confused. Fuentes was a common Hispanic surname, but still, what were the chances a community center with her family name would open in her neighborhood? And how did they know about her childcare experience? She called the number on the invitation, and a friendly receptionist confirmed that yes, Mrs. Maria Fuentes was specifically invited, and transportation could be provided if needed. But why me? Maria asked. The selection committee requested your presence specifically, the woman explained. They're reaching out to experienced childcare workers in the community. On the morning of the opening, Maria dressed in her best outfit, ABB blue dress she'd worn to her daughter's college graduation years ago. She felt nervous, unsure why she'd been invited to what sounded like an important event. A car arrived to pick her up, driving her to a part of the neighborhood she rarely visited. As they approached Mariposa Street, Maria gasped. Where there had once been an abandoned warehouse and vacant lot, now stood a beautiful modern building surrounded by landscaped gardens. People were gathering outside, the crowd diverse in age and ethnicity, reflecting the neighborhood's makeup. The driver escorted Maria to the entrance, where a young woman greeted her warmly. Mrs. Fuentes, we're so honored you could come. I'm Diane Lee, the center's program director. Please follow me. We have a special place for you at the ceremony. Bewildered, Maria followed Diane through the entrance, where a large sign read, The Fuentes Family Community Center, in both English and Spanish. Inside, the building was even more impressive. Bright, open spaces filled with natural light, colorful murals, and state-of-the-art facilities. This is incredible, Maria murmured, taking it all in. But I don't understand why it has my family name. Diane smiled mysteriously. All will be explained during the ceremony. Please, this way. Maria was led to a front-row seat beside the stage. As she waited for the program to begin, she looked around in awe. The center had a modern library, computer labs, classrooms, medical examination rooms, and what appeared to be a professional kitchen. At precisely 11:00, the ceremony began. The mayor of San Jose spoke about community renewal and investment in underserved neighborhoods. The president of a local college discussed educational partnerships. A hospital administrator described the health services that would be provided. Then came the moment that left Maria breathless. "It is my honor," said the mayor, "to explain the naming of this remarkable facility. The Fuentes Family Community Center celebrates the legacy of Miguel Fuentes, who came to this country with nothing but his work ethic and his dreams. Miguel worked construction in this very neighborhood, helping build many of the homes where our families live. When illness struck, he fought bravely, while worrying more about his family's future than his own comfort." Maria's hand flew to her mouth. They were talking about her Miguel, her husband. "The center also honors his wife, Maria Fuentes," the mayor continued, gesturing toward her, "who has dedicated her life to caring for children, including many who grew up to make significant contributions to our community and beyond." Tears streamed down Maria's face as she tried to comprehend what was happening. How did they know these things about her family? Who had done this? After the speeches, Diane led Maria on a tour of the building. Each area seemed designed with thoughtful purpose. The children's library contained books in 12 languages, including the Spanish folk tales Maria loved to read to her shelter kids. The playground featured equipment specially designed for children with physical disabilities, just like what her grandson Luis needed. In the senior center, Maria noticed programs addressing exactly what her elderly friends had been requesting for years: transportation services, technology training, prescription assistance, and social activities. "This is the Wall of Community Heroes," Diane explained, leading Maria to a hallway with framed photographs. Maria stopped short. There, prominently displayed, was a picture of Miguel in his younger days, looking handsome in his construction uniform, his smile wide and confident. The plaque beneath read, "Miguel Fuentes, 1952-2018. Builder, provider, community hero. His hands built homes. His heart built a legacy." "Who did this?" Maria whispered, touching the frame with trembling fingers. "Who would honor my Miguel this way?" Diane hesitated before answering. "The donor prefers to remain anonymous. All I can tell you is that they wanted to recognize people whose contributions might otherwise go unnoticed, people who built this community with their hard work and care." As the tour continued, Maria was shown a classroom designed for storytelling. The acoustics were perfect. The child-sized chairs arranged in a semicircle, and the walls lined with bookshelves containing titles Maria had often mentioned as favorites at the shelter. "This is where you would work, if you're interested," Diane said casually. "Me? Work here?" Maria asked, stunned. "Yes. We'd like to offer you the position of Director of Childcare Programs. Your experience is exactly what we need to develop culturally responsive care for our diverse community." By the time Maria returned home that evening, her mind was spinning. The center was incredible, a dream facility that addressed every need in her community. The salary Diane had mentioned was generous, the responsibilities meaningful, and the hours reasonable. But the mystery remained. Who knew so much about Miguel, about her, about their lives? Who would invest millions in a center bearing their name? As she prepared for bed, Maria found herself thinking once again of Elon Musk. First, the health insurance, then the rent reduction, the debt forgiveness, the job at the shelter. And now this? It seemed impossible that all these changes could be connected to him. Yet as she drifted off to sleep, Maria remembered something Elon had once said about his business philosophy in an interview she'd seen years ago. "When something is important, enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor." Building a community center and naming it after an ordinary construction worker certainly qualified as unfavorable odds. But perhaps to someone who sent rockets to space and transformed the auto industry, such odds meant nothing at all. The morning after the center's opening, Maria woke with a mixture of excitement and doubt. The job offer replayed in her mind: Director of Child Care Programs at the Fuentes Family Community Center. The position came with a generous salary, benefits, and the chance to shape programming for generations of children. But did she have the energy? At 68, most people were settling into retirement, not taking on new leadership roles. Her arthritis was better, but not gone. And what did she know about running programs? She'd been a nanny and caregiver, not an administrator. Maria made herself a cup of coffee and sat at her small kitchen table, where the job description packet Diane had given her lay open. The responsibilities were significant: developing curriculum, hiring and training staff, creating partnerships with schools and families. "I don't have a college degree," she muttered to herself. "There must be younger, more qualified people." Still, as she read through the materials again, Maria realized the job description seemed almost tailored to her experiences. It emphasized cultural competency, language skills, and practical knowledge of child development, all strengths she'd developed over decades of child care work. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. "Mama, I just heard about the community center," Carmen exclaimed when Maria answered. "A friend sent me an article about it. They named it after Papa? How is this possible?" "I don't know, mija," Maria replied honestly. "It's all very strange. And they offered me a job running the children's programs." "That's amazing," Carmen said. "You'd be perfect for that." Maria sighed. "I'm too old, Carmen. I should be slowing down, not starting a new career." "Mama, you've never slowed down a day in your life," Carmen laughed. "Remember when you worked 2 jobs and still made all our Halloween costumes by hand? Age is just a number." After talking with Carmen, Maria decided to visit the center again. She needed to see it in daylight, to think clearly about this decision without the emotion of the opening ceremony. When she arrived, the center was already bustling with activity. Seniors gathered in a sunny room for what appeared to be a computer class. Young mothers with babies waited in the health clinic area. Teenagers worked in the technology lab. Maria wandered toward the child care section, where she found workers setting up classrooms. As she observed, a young woman approached her. "Mrs. Fuentes? I'm Anya Petrenko," she said with a slight accent. "I'm running the cultural programs here." Anya appeared to be in her early 30s, with blonde hair tied back in a practical ponytail, and kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. "Nice to meet you," Maria said. "I was just looking around before deciding about the job offer. I heard they offered you the childcare position. I hope you'll accept," Anya said earnestly. "We need someone with real experience." As they walked through the childcare spaces, Anya explained that she had immigrated from Ukraine 5 years ago. "I was raised by my grandmother after my parents died," she told Maria. "In my country, older people are respected for their wisdom, especially with children. Here in America, everyone wants the youngest person with the newest degree." Maria nodded, in understanding. "But children don't need theories," Anya continued passionately. "They need patience, stories, traditions. You know this." She gestured to where workers were arranging child-sized furniture. "The children who will come here, many from immigrant families, many struggling, they need someone who understands their lives, someone like you." Maria was touched by Anya's conviction. "I appreciate your faith in me, but I worry about my age. This job would be a big commitment." Anya smiled knowingly. "My grandmother started a women's cooperative at age 72. She ran it until she was 85. When you have wisdom to share, age doesn't matter. That evening, Maria sat looking through old photo albums, pictures of her own children when they were small, groups of the children she'd nannied over the years, a faded photograph of baby Elon Musk sleeping peacefully in his bassinet while his parents looked on. So many children had passed through her care. What if she could use everything she'd learned to help not just a few children, but hundreds? What if her methods and approaches could be taught to younger caregivers, extending her impact beyond what she could do alone? The next morning, Maria called Diane and accepted the position. "Wonderful," Diane exclaimed. "Can you start next Monday? We'll have your office ready." Her office. Maria had never had an office before. Within a month, Maria had developed a comprehensive approach to the center's childcare programs. She combined traditional stories and games from various cultures with modern educational techniques. She created a grandparent volunteer program that brought seniors into the childcare spaces, benefiting both the children and the older adults who had wisdom to share. Parents quickly noticed the difference. Children who had been reluctant to attend other programs ran eagerly into Maria's carefully designed spaces. Even children with behavioral challenges responded to her calm, respectful approach. Word spread throughout San Jose about the exceptional childcare at the Fuentes Family Community Center. Soon, there was a waiting list, and other centers began sending staff to learn Maria's methods. At home one evening, Maria looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the energetic, purposeful woman who looked back at her. 6 months ago, she had been exhausted, in pain, and worried about survival. Now she led a team, made important decisions, and saw the impact of her work every day. For the first time in years, Maria felt truly alive. Not just surviving, but thriving. And she couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, some way, Elon Musk was responsible for this remarkable transformation. A year after the community center opened, Maria celebrated her 69th birthday, surrounded by her staff, who decorated her office with balloons and brought a homemade tres leches cake. The center had become her second home, a place where she felt valued and purposeful. The Fuentes Family Community Center had exceeded everyone's expectations. What started as childcare, health services, and senior programs had expanded to include legal aid for immigrants, technology training for job seekers, and arts programs for all ages. The center now served over 2,000 people each week. Maria's child care program had received recognition from educational organizations across California. Delegations from other cities regularly visited to learn her methods, which blended cultural traditions with evidence-based practices. She had been interviewed by local newspapers and even featured in a parenting magazine. Yet, through all this success, one question continued to nag at Maria. Who was behind it all? Who had invested millions to create this place and name it after her family? One Tuesday afternoon, Maria was in a budget meeting with Diane Lee, the center's director, and several board members. As they discussed funding for an expansion of the senior services wing, she overheard something that caught her attention. "We'll need to get approval from the investor for this level of expenditure," said a board member named Robert. "I'll draft the proposal," Diane replied. "Though you know how he is. As long as it serves the community and fits our mission, he'll probably approve it." 50 million more, Robert mused. "I still can't believe someone would invest so much and insist on staying anonymous." Maria pretended to review her notes, but her mind was racing. 50 million more? On top of what had already been spent? Who had that kind of money to invest in a community center in one of San Jose's poorest neighborhoods? After the meeting, Maria couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious investor. She approached Sophia, her friend who also volunteered at the center, with a plan. "I need your help," Maria explained over coffee in the center's cafe. "I want to find out who's behind all this." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Should you be looking a gift horse in the mouth? Does it matter who the donor is?" "It matters to me," Maria insisted. "All these good things happening, my debt, my job, this center with my husband's name on it. It can't be coincidence. I need to know the truth." Sophia agreed to help. She had a nephew who worked in real estate law who might be able to access public records about the center's property. As Maria walked through the center that afternoon, she began noticing details she'd overlooked before. The energy systems that powered the building were Tesla Powerwalls and solar panels. The playground featured a miniature Mars habitat that looked exactly like SpaceX designs. The children's library had an entire section devoted to space exploration and sustainable energy. In the technology lab, Maria observed the coding class for teens. The curriculum focused heavily on artificial intelligence and electric vehicle design, both areas where Elon Musk's companies were industry leaders. That evening, Maria searched online for information about the center's founding. Most articles mentioned only that it was funded by a private investor with ties to the tech industry. The architectural firm that designed the building had also worked on Tesla's headquarters. A week later, Sophia met Maria with information from her nephew. The land was purchased by a company called XA Holdings, Sophia reported, showing Maria the documents. It's registered in Nevada, with a P.O. box address. The company was formed just 2 days before the property transaction. Maria murmured. "That sounds like the name of Elon Musk's son, the one with the unusual name." "There's more," Sophia continued. "The architectural plans were approved in record time because they included cutting-edge sustainable features that qualified for special city incentives. The plans were personally signed off by the mayor after a meeting with a high-profile tech leader." Maria thanked Sophia for the information. She was now convinced that Elon must be involved, but she still had no definitive proof. And if he was deliberately keeping his involvement secret, should she respect that? Her opportunity to learn more came unexpectedly the following month. The center was hosting a fundraiser for its scholarship program, which helped community members attend college. As Maria greeted guests in the lobby, she overheard 2 board members speaking quietly in a corner. "Have you ever actually met him?" one asked. "I've only communicated through his lawyers." "Once, very briefly," the other replied. "When the initial funding came through, he was emphatic about the anonymity. Said if his name was ever attached to the project, he would withdraw support." "But why? Most billionaires want their names on buildings." "He said something about this being personal, not promotional. I got the impression it was connected to someone he knew a long time ago." Maria moved away before they noticed her listening. Her heart was pounding. This seemed to confirm her suspicions, but she needed to be certain. That night, Maria drafted an email to Elon Musk using the address she found on Tesla's investor relations page. She stared at the screen for an hour, typing and deleting, before finally sending a simple message. "Dear Mr. Musk, you may not remember me, but I was your son, Nevada's nanny, many years ago. I've recently experienced some remarkable changes in my life, including working at a new community center named after my late husband. I find myself wondering if you might be connected to these events. If so, I would simply like to express my gratitude. Your privacy will be respected. Sincerely, Maria Fuentes." Days passed with no response. Maria tried not to feel disappointed. Of course, a man like Elon Musk wouldn't respond to a random email. If he even saw it among thousands, he must receive daily. 2 weeks later, Maria was working late in her office when Diane knocked on her door. "Maria, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, closing the door behind her. "I received a call from one of our legal representatives. It seems you've been making inquiries about our primary investor." Maria's face flushed. "I was just curious." Diane held up her hand. "I'm not accusing you of anything, but I need to remind you that the confidentiality of our donor is a condition of our funding. Even board members don't know the full details." "I understand," Maria said, embarrassed. "I won't pursue it further." After Diane left, Maria sat at her desk feeling conflicted. She had her answer, even if it wasn't directly confirmed. The swift response to her email, not from Elon himself, but from the center's lawyers, told her everything she needed to know. The mysterious investor was indeed Elon Musk, and he was determined to remain anonymous, even from her. Maria decided to respect Elon's wish for anonymity. Whatever his reasons, she owed him that much. Instead of pursuing the mystery further, she channeled her energy into making the community center everything it could be. As the Fuentes Family Community Center entered its second year, its impact on the neighborhood became increasingly visible. Crime rates in the surrounding area dropped by 40%, according to police reports. The center provided safe spaces for teens after school, keeping them engaged in positive activities rather than wandering the streets. Before the center opened, this neighborhood was a different place, Officer Ramirez told Maria during a community safety meeting. "We used to get calls every night about break-ins, vandalism, gang activity. Now, those calls have been cut in half." The FI health clinic in the center made an even more dramatic difference. Many local residents had previously used emergency rooms for primary care, waiting until health issues became critical before seeking help. Now they had access to preventive care, regular checkups, and prescription assistance. "We've seen a 60% decrease in preventable hospitalizations," reported Dr. Chen, who volunteered at the clinic 2 days a week. "People with chronic conditions like diabetes and hypertension are managing their health much better with regular care." For seniors like Maria's friend Sophia, the center provided critical services that allowed them to remain independent. Transportation to medical appointments, help with technology to stay connected to family, and social activities to combat isolation improved their quality of life immensely. "Before the center, I saw my grandchildren maybe twice a year," Sophia told Maria. "Now they FaceTime me every week because the young people at the tech help desk showed me how to use my phone properly. The Employment Services Department helped locals find better jobs. Resume workshops, interview training, and computer skills classes led to higher employment rates and better wages for neighborhood residents." Maria's own life had been transformed most dramatically of all. Her new apartment in the senior housing complex next to the center was comfortable and affordable. Her health was good thanks to proper medical care. Her finances were secure, with a meaningful job that paid well without straining her physically. But most importantly, her family was thriving. When her grandson Luis visited from Chicago, he received excellent therapy at the center's pediatric services department. Carmen was considering moving back to San Jose because of the opportunities the center provided. One evening, Maria's son Alejandro called from Germany with exciting news. "I'm being transferred back to California, Mama," he said. "My family and I will be living just 30 minutes from you." "That's wonderful," Maria exclaimed. "After all these years, we'll be together again." "It's because of the center, honestly," Alejandro admitted. "Daniela and I have been worried about you for so long, but now you sound happier than you've been since Papa died. And the schools near you have those special programs for Sophia's dyslexia." Maria hung up, tears of joy in her eyes. The ripples from the center were bringing her family back together, something she had never thought possible. The center's influence spread beyond the immediate neighborhood. Other communities in San Jose began to take notice of the dramatic improvements. City officials visited to study the model. Soon, plans for similar centers in 3 other underserved neighborhoods were announced. "We're adapting the Fuentes Family Community Center approach," Mayor Wilson explained at a press conference. "The integrated services model has proven remarkably effective at addressing systemic issues in vulnerable communities." Maria was invited to consult on the childcare programs for these new centers. Her approach, now called the Fuentes Method, was being studied by early childhood educators throughout California. Universities sent students to observe and learn from her team. News outlets began running stories about the San Jose miracle, how one neighborhood had been transformed through strategic investment in human potential rather than just buildings or businesses. National publications featured articles analyzing how the center's model could be replicated in other cities. 6 months later, Maria read that similar centers had opened in Oakland, Detroit, and Baltimore. Though differently named, they all followed the same integrated service approach pioneered at the Fuentes Family Community Center. "Have you seen this?" Diane asked one morning, showing Maria an article in a business magazine. "The anonymous investor behind our center is reportedly funding identical projects in 20 cities across America, with plans for international expansion." Maria scanned the article, which estimated the total investment at over $2 billion. The EET reporter speculated about which tech billionaire might be behind the initiative, naming several possibilities including Elon Musk, but cited sources close to the project who insisted the donor wished to remain unnamed. That weekend, Maria visited Miguel's grave with fresh flowers. As she sat beside the headstone, she told him about everything that had happened. "Can you believe it, mi amor?" she said softly. "Your name is now associated with all this good in the world. Centers like ours are opening everywhere. Thousands of lives are changing." She traced her fingers over Miguel's name engraved in stone. "And it all started because you loved me enough to fight so hard against your illness. Your struggle touched someone's heart so deeply that they created all this in your memory." A gentle breeze rustled the cemetery trees. Maria sat in peaceful silence, contemplating how a chance encounter in a small cafe had led to such extraordinary changes, not just in her life, but in countless others. She thought about Elon Musk, whom she still hadn't seen since their lunch 2 years ago. His companies were changing the world in dramatic, visible ways. Yet, here was another legacy, quieter, but perhaps equally profound, spreading from community to community, improving lives without fanfare or recognition. Maria wondered if he ever visited the center anonymously to see what his investment had created. Did he know about Luis's progress in therapy? About the decreased crime rates? About the families being reunited? As Maria walked back to her apartment, she noticed a sleek Tesla slowing down as it passed the center. The windows were tinted, the driver invisible. The car paused briefly before continuing down the street. Maria smiled to herself. Perhaps the mysterious investor wasn't so distant after all. Maria's 70th birthday arrived on a perfect spring day in April. She had planned a quiet celebration with a few friends, but when she arrived at the center that morning, she found the entire lobby decorated with balloons and flowers. "Surprise!" shouted a crowd of staff, volunteers, children, and community members. Maria pressed her hands to her cheeks in astonishment. "What is all this? You didn't think we'd let your 70th birthday pass without a proper celebration, did you?" Diane asked, guiding Maria through the crowd of well-wishers. Throughout the day, people stopped by to thank Maria for her contributions to the center. Parents whose children had blossomed under her care. Seniors who had found purpose through her intergenerational programs. Young staff members she had mentored. Carmen and Alejandro had flown in with their families for the occasion. Seeing all her grandchildren together, including Luis, who was now walking with only minimal assistance thanks to the therapy he received at the center, filled Maria's heart with joy. In the afternoon, the center hosted an official ceremony in the auditorium. The mayor presented Maria with a key to the city for her contributions to early childhood education. The state university announced a scholarship in her name for students pursuing careers in community service. "I never expected any of this," Maria said when it was her turn to speak. Her voice trembled with emotion. 3 years ago, I was working 2 jobs and barely surviving. Now I stand before you with a full heart and a grateful spirit. She looked out at the faces of her community. This center has shown what is possible when we invest in human potential. But remember, the building is just the beginning. It's the connections we make, the care we show each other, that truly changes lives. As the celebration continued with cake and music, a courier in a crisp uniform entered the lobby. He scanned the crowd, then approached Maria. "Mrs. Fuentes, I have a delivery for you," he said, presenting her with a small package. "I was instructed to place this directly in your hands." The package was wrapped in simple brown paper with her name handwritten on the front. No return address or company logo provided clues to its origin. "Who sent this?" Maria asked. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I was only told to deliver it and confirm receipt," the courier replied before slipping away through the crowd. Maria carried the mysterious package to her office for privacy. She carefully unwrapped the brown paper to reveal a beautiful wooden box made of polished walnut. Inside, nestled in velvet, was a paperweight containing what appeared to be a small reddish rock. She lifted the paperweight, surprised by its weight. A small card beside it read, "Authentic Mars Meteorite Specimen, Sahara 99555." Maria's fingers trembled slightly. Only someone with connections to space exploration would have access to such an item. Beneath the paperweight lay a sealed envelope. Maria opened it with care, unfolding several pages of handwritten text. She immediately recognized the handwriting. The same distinctive style from notes about Nevada's schedule that Elon had left for her more than 20 years ago. "Dear Maria, you may have guessed by now that I've been keeping an eye on you and the Center. What you don't know is why this matters so much to me. When Nevada died, Justine and I were shattered in ways I couldn't articulate then, and still struggle to express now. Many people offered sympathy, but few understood the depth of our loss. You were different. I remember finding you in the kitchen at 3 a.m., carefully washing his bottles. You weren't doing it for show or because it was your job. You were grieving him too, in your quiet way. When you told me he was beautiful, it was the first time I felt someone else truly saw our son as we did. Not as a tragedy, but as a perfect little person whose time was cruelly short. That moment stayed with me through the darkest days. It taught me that even in grief, human connection matters. This lesson has guided me through building companies and facing failures. When I saw you again in that cafe, working so hard despite your own losses, it felt like the universe offering a chance to acknowledge the gift you gave us. I could have simply written you a check, but I knew you well enough to understand that you needed purpose more than charity. Your skills with children, your cultural knowledge, your compassion, these are valuable beyond measure. The center gives you a platform to share these gifts while securing your future. What I didn't anticipate was how your approach would resonate so widely. The Fuentes method is now being implemented in centers across the country. The model of integrating child care, health care, and community services that we pioneered in San Jose is being studied globally. Perhaps most surprisingly, your work has influenced our planning for future Mars habitats. Creating sustainable communities in harsh environments will require exactly the kind of intergenerational, culturally sensitive approach you've demonstrated. Your methods are being incorporated into training for the first families who will eventually live on Mars. From caring for one child in Palo Alto to shaping how humanity might raise children on another planet. That is the reach of your influence, Maria. I've respected your dignity by keeping my involvement private, and I ask that you continue to honor my wish for anonymity. Some things I do for the public eye, but this has always been personal. Your kindness to my son, Nevada, deserves more than I could ever repay. As you celebrate your 70th birthday, please know that your legacy extends far beyond what you can see. The ripples of your compassion will touch lives on Earth, and someday, beyond. With deepest gratitude, Elon Maria read the letter 3 times, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. The magnitude of what Elon had done, not just for her, but for an entire community and beyond, was almost impossible to comprehend. All this time, she had wondered about his motivation. Now she understood. Her simple act of genuine grief for his child had meant more to him than she could have imagined. In a moment of shared humanity, a connection had formed that transcended their different worlds. Maria carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the wooden box with the Mars rock paperweight. This was a private treasure she would keep close to her heart. As she rejoined her birthday celebration, Maria carried a new sense of wonder. The care she had shown to one small baby decades ago had set in motion events that would touch countless lives and might someday reach all the way to another planet. 5 years after Maria's 70th birthday, the Fuentes Family Community Center had become a national model. Similar centers had opened in 50 cities across America, and international versions were operating in Mexico, Brazil, South Africa, and India. Maria, now 75, still served as an advisor to the childcare programs, though she had stepped back from daily management. Her methods had been formalized into training materials, research studies, and even a textbook. Universities offered courses in the Fuentes method of integrated community care. Maria lived a comfortable life in a sunny apartment near the center. Her family had grown. Carmen and Alejandro both lived nearby with their children, and she had 2 great-grandchildren who visited often. Luis, now 12, excelled in science classes and dreamed of becoming an engineer. One spring morning, Maria received a call from Diane, who had become the regional director overseeing 10 centers throughout California. "Maria, I've had an interesting request," Diane said. "A documentary filmmaker wants to feature our center in a series about innovative community solutions. They specifically asked to interview you about the origins of the center." "Me? Why me?" Maria asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Because you've been here from the beginning," Diane explained, "and because the Fuentes method is now internationally recognized. The documentary will be distributed on a major streaming platform." Maria agreed to the interview, scheduled for the following week. She spent several days reflecting on what she would say. The wooden box containing Elon's letter remained in her bedside drawer, a private reminder of the truth behind the center's creation. When the day arrived, Maria met the filmmaker, a thoughtful woman named Rebecca, who had previously directed award-winning documentaries about social change. They sat in the center's garden, cameras rolling as Rebecca asked about Maria's life before and after the center opened. Maria shared stories of her years as a nanny, her husband Miguel's illness, and her struggle to survive afterward. She described the center's impact on the community and how the integrated approach had transformed thousands of lives. Then Rebecca asked the question Maria had been anticipating. There are rumors that Elon Musk is the anonymous donor behind this center and all its sister facilities. Can you confirm this? Maria paused, considering her response carefully. She had promised to respect Elon's privacy, yet she also recognized the power of the truth to inspire others. After a long moment, she smiled gently. "I believe that everyone who walks through life leaves footprints," she began. "Sometimes those prints are small, sometimes they're enormous. But what matters isn't the size of the footprint, it's whether those prints lead others to a better path." She looked directly into the camera. "This center exists because many footprints converged here. Mine, my husband Miguel's, and yes, those of a man who once trusted me with his most precious gift, his child." Rebecca leaned forward. "Are you saying Elon Musk is the investor?" Maria maintained her warm smile. "I'm saying that connections between people matter more than we realize. A moment of kindness, of shared humanity, can ripple outward in ways we never imagine. This center is proof of that." Despite Rebecca's gentle pressing, Maria would neither confirm nor deny Elon's involvement directly. She honored both his privacy and the truth by focusing on the impact rather than the source. The documentary, titled Ripple Effect: How One Community Changed a Nation, premiered 6 months later. It became an instant sensation, sparking discussions about community investment, elder wisdom, and the long-term value of quality childcare. While speculation about Elon's role continued, the documentary focused primarily on the remarkable results: decreased crime rates, improved health outcomes, better educational achievement, and stronger families in every community with a center. At the premiere screening, Maria sat in the audience surrounded by her family and friends from the center. As the credits rolled, she felt her phone buzz in her purse. Discreetly checking the message, she saw it came from an unknown number. "You found the perfect words, as always. Thank you for everything, Maria. The children of Mars will know your name." Maria smiled, tucking her phone away. The journey that had begun with a chance encounter in a small cafe had come full circle. She had once cared for a tech entrepreneur's baby. Now her methods would help shape how children would be raised on another planet. As people approached to congratulate her after the screening, Maria reflected on life's unpredictable paths. If someone had told her years ago that at 75 she would have a global legacy extending beyond Earth, she would have thought it impossible. But as Elon Musk had proven throughout his career, impossible was just a starting point. And as Maria had learned throughout her life, kindness was the most powerful force in the universe, able to cross decades, heal wounds, build communities, and perhaps even reach the stars.